I always thought love was supposed to feel safe, unshakable, like the world couldn't touch it. Marcus and I, we had that. 10 years together. Every anniversary, every small celebration, every late night laugh. It felt like proof that what we had was real, unbreakable. But that night, our anniversary night, everything changed. He handed me a letter, just a folded piece of paper, nothing fancy. But the way he looked at me, the hesitation in his hands, the pause in his breath, I knew. I knew it wasn't just a letter. It was a truth I wasn't supposed to uncover, a secret that had been buried for years. I should have handed it back, walked away, ignored it. But curiosity, that's a dangerous thing when it's mixed with love. I unfolded it, and the words inside, they shattered the life I thought I knew. They made me question every smile, every promise, every late night whisper in the dark. That one letter, it made me question him. It made me question myself, and it made me question everything we had built together. My name is Tasha, and I always prided myself on having life under control. I'm a school counselor, which means my days are filled with helping teenagers navigate heartbreak, failure, and confusion. I'm used to being the person who fixes things, who holds the pieces together. But in my own life, I thought I had it all figured out. Marcus entered my life during my sophomore year of college. He was confident, loud, funny in a way that made everyone around him feel alive. I, on the other hand, was quieter, more reserved, someone who observed before stepping in. Yet somehow he saw me, the real me, and chased me relentlessly until I couldn't resist. We fell into love like it was written in the stars. Late night talks about dreams, spontaneous adventures in the city, and promises whispered under the quiet hum of streetlights. When we graduated, we moved into a small apartment, working our first jobs and learning the rhythms of life together. Marcus was everything I wanted: attentive, passionate, funny, and deeply loyal. Or so I believed. He had this way of making even mundane moments magical. Cooking breakfast on lazy Sundays, dancing in the kitchen to music only we could hear, leaving little notes in my bag reminding me he loved me. It all felt perfect. Outside our relationship, I had a life I loved, friends who had become family, a career that challenged and fulfilled me, weekends with laughter and purpose. But love with Marcus was a different world. People always said we were the couple everyone envied. I didn't care much for what others thought, but part of me, I liked hearing it. It confirmed what I felt, that we had something rare. Yet, even in perfection, there are cracks. Small things at first. The way Marcus would glance at his phone a little too quickly when I entered the room. The late night calls he didn't tell me about. The secret smiles when reading messages I wasn't meant to see. I noticed, sometimes questioned, but I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe he was perfect. I wanted to believe love was unshakable. And so, on the night of our 10th anniversary, I dressed in the gown I had picked out months before, a deep emerald green, silk that felt like it belonged on a queen. The apartment was quiet, except for soft candlelight, Marcus's favorite jazz playlist filling the background. He came in holding a glass of wine, smiling that smile that had first made me fall in love. But there was something in his eyes, something heavier, almost unbearable. And then he handed me the letter, a simple, folded piece of paper, but in that moment, it became the weight of the world. He looked at me like he was afraid of my reaction, like he was holding a storm in his hands. The room felt smaller, the candlelight flickered as if warning me, and my heart pounded in a way it never had before. I didn't know it yet, but that letter would unravel the life I had spent a decade building. That letter would force me to question everything I thought I knew about Marcus, about our love, and about myself. And as I took it from him, I felt the first tremor in what I thought was unshakable love. I stared at the letter in my hands, feeling the edges of the paper as if touching it could somehow prepare me for what was inside. Marcus's eyes never left mine. There was a tension in the room I'd never felt before, a silence that felt louder than any music. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, each thump a warning I tried to ignore. Tasha, I I didn't know how to tell you this, he said finally, his voice low, almost trembling. My hands shook, gripping the letter as though letting go would make it real. It's it's something I wrote a long time ago, something I meant to never give you. Then why are you giving it to me now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. A pit formed in my stomach. I had learned to trust him, to believe in him completely, but the way he avoided my eyes made my chest tighten. He hesitated, then said, "Because I can't keep it hidden anymore, not on a night like this." That's when curiosity and fear took over. I unfolded the paper. The handwriting was unmistakably his, careful, deliberate, almost painfully neat. But the words made my stomach drop. They weren't love notes. They weren't sweet reminders of our anniversary or our life together. They were confessions. I couldn't believe what I was reading. There were names I didn't recognize, dates, secret plans, things he had written about long before we had married. And it wasn't just about fleeting mistakes. Some of it felt calculated. It felt like he'd been living a life parallel to our own, hiding pieces of himself I had never known. I looked up at him, my hands trembling, eyes wide. Marcus, what is this? I could barely speak. Every memory we had seemed to waver like a reflection in water. The way he smiled at me, the late-night talks, even the promises we whispered in the dark, had they all been lies? He stepped closer, and for the first time I noticed the exhaustion in his posture, the weight of guilt in his gaze. Tasha, I was going to tell you eventually. I promise I was going to tell you. I thought I could fix it before it ever hurt you. Fix it? I repeated, my voice shaking. Marcus, this isn't something you fix with promises. This is our life. Tears burned my eyes, but I couldn't stop reading. Each line of the letter felt like a small betrayal, a hidden fracture in the foundation of everything I had believed in. And yet, beneath the shock, beneath the heartbreak, there was a truth I had to acknowledge. He hadn't written it to hurt me. Not exactly. He'd written it out of fear, out of shame, out of some desperate hope to protect me from a truth I now realized I needed to know. I folded the letter back up, my hands shaking, and looked at him again. He didn't flinch. He didn't defend himself. He just waited, as if bracing for the inevitable storm he had set in motion. And in that moment, I realized something. The life I thought I had, the love I thought was unshakable, it had changed forever. That anniversary night wasn't going to be a celebration. It was going to be a reckoning. After that night, everything felt different. Our apartment, the same place that once smelled like fresh coffee and shared laughter, suddenly felt suffocating. The candles, the soft jazz, even Marcus's familiar smile, everything seemed tainted with the weight of what I had discovered. I couldn't stop thinking about the letter, about every line that revealed parts of him I had never known. I kept replaying his words, trying to understand, trying to make sense, but every thought only deepened the knot in my chest. The next morning, I woke up before him, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I felt betrayed, but also confused. Marcus hadn't lied about everything, had he? There were years of love, moments of joy, nights where he held me and whispered promises. Did that mean nothing now? Or was it all just a carefully constructed illusion? When he finally came into the kitchen, holding 2 mugs of coffee, I didn't reach for them. I didn't look at him directly. The silence between us was thick, heavier than any argument we had ever had. He tried to speak, but I stopped him. I can't. Not yet, I said, my voice tight. I need time. He nodded, eyes full of remorse, but I could see it, the helplessness, the fear that I might walk away forever. And in that fear, I felt a strange mix of anger and sadness. I loved him, and yet I felt like I barely knew him. Over the next few days, our conversations were short, clipped, like we were both afraid of saying the wrong thing. I started noticing the small habits I had ignored before, the way he avoided my questions, the nervous tics he used to hide uncertainty. Everything that once seemed comforting now felt suspicious. Every smile, every touch, every memory, it had to be re-examined. Friends noticed the change too. I confided in my sister one night, showing her the letter. Her eyes widened, and she didn't even need to say anything. I already knew what she thought. "Tasha, you deserve the truth," she said softly, "not just the parts he's willing to give you." I realized then that I had been living in a kind of love-induced blindness. I had chosen to overlook small cracks because I wanted to believe in perfection. But the letter had shattered that illusion, and now everything, our home, our plans, even the life we had built together felt fragile. I tried to carry on, to act normal, but every glance at Marcus, every casual touch, reminded me of the secret weight he had carried for years. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat properly. I questioned every choice I had made, every moment I trusted him. And worst of all, I began questioning myself. Had I been naive, too trusting, blind to the truth that was right in front of me? Marcus tried. He brought flowers, cooked dinners, left little notes like he used to, but I couldn't return to that place of trust so easily. The love was still there, I knew that, but it was tainted with doubt, layered now with fear that the man I loved could keep such secrets for so long. That night, the anniversary night, hadn't just revealed a letter, it had revealed a fracture in him, in me, in us. And now we both had to decide whether that fracture was something we could survive or if it would split us apart forever. I didn't know how long I could keep avoiding it. Every day the letter haunted me, not just the words, but the questions it raised. Who had he written about? Why had he hidden it for so long? And the biggest question of all, was the man I loved still the man I thought I knew? Finally, I couldn't bear it anymore. I confronted Marcus one evening after work. The apartment was quiet, but my chest felt like it was going to explode. I held the letter in my hands, the paper crumpled from my endless folding and unfolding. "Marcus, I need to know the truth," I said, voice trembling but firm. "Everything. I can't live in this shadow anymore." He swallowed hard, running a hand through his hair. And then, finally, he spoke. "Tasha, I should have told you years ago. I was afraid you'd hate me, afraid you'd leave, afraid of losing us. But you deserve to know everything." My heart pounded. "Then tell me, no more hiding." And he did. The letter. It wasn't about another woman or betrayal in the way I had feared. It was about his family. Marcus had grown up in a home full of secrets, abuse, debts, broken promises. The letter was to himself, a record of fears, mistakes, and plans he made as a young man to protect himself and eventually protect me. Names, dates, confessions, they weren't lies about our life. They were remnants of a past he had never been ready to share. "I wanted to be better," he said, tears glistening in his eyes. "I wanted to make sure that what happened in my family, it would never touch us. I wrote it down to remind myself, to keep myself in check. I never wanted you to see it because I didn't want you to carry my past." I sank to the floor, the letter falling from my hands. My mind raced, trying to reconcile the pain of the past few days with the relief of this truth. He hadn't betrayed me, he had shielded me. He had carried his scars alone, so I wouldn't feel their pain. And then it hit me. The anger, the betrayal, the doubt I had felt was all misplaced. What I had interpreted as secrecy and deceit was actually love, the kind that sacrifices silently, quietly,
so the one you love can live without the weight of your mistakes. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw the man I had fallen in love with all over again, the man who had fought through his own darkness to create a life that was ours, a life built on love, trust, and hope. And for the first time in days, I felt a weight lift off my chest. Not all the pain was gone, but the clarity, the truth, it was liberating. I reached for him, holding his hands tightly, and whispered, "I understand now. I see you." And in that moment, the storm between us began to settle. The letter that had threatened to destroy us had, in the end, shown me the depth of his love. It wasn't perfect. Life isn't perfect. But the truth was enough to remind me why I had chosen him, why I had loved him, and why I could still believe in us.
After the revelation, the first days were quiet. Too quiet. I couldn't just pretend everything was back to normal, and Marcus didn't expect me to. He gave me space, but he didn't retreat. He stayed close in the ways that mattered. A hand on my back as I poured coffee, a smile across the room, the silent presence that reminded me he was still here, still mine. We started talking, really talking, not just surface conversations about work or errands, but the hard stuff, the past, the letter, the fear, the mistakes. We spoke late into the night, words tumbling out like rushing water, painful but necessary. I learned about his childhood, about the shadows he had carried for decades, about the moments he had doubted himself, and about the lengths he had gone to protect me from them. And as he spoke, I realized how much courage it took to even let me see that part of him. It wasn't easy. Some days the anger bubbled back up, a sharp reminder of the hurt and confusion. Some nights I lay awake, replaying the letter in my mind, questioning whether trust could ever truly be restored. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to shift. I found myself laughing at his silly jokes again, feeling that familiar warmth when he touched my hand. I noticed the small gestures, the way he'd leave the coffee warm just how I liked it, the way he always noticed when I was upset, even if I pretended I wasn't. We began rebuilding, not just patching cracks, but creating something stronger. We went to counseling together, not because we were broken beyond repair, but because we wanted to understand each other better, to communicate openly, to ensure the past didn't overshadow the future. Those sessions were intense, painful at times, but they also reminded me why I loved him, why I had chosen him. And slowly, the fear and doubt that had once consumed me began to fade. I also learned to forgive myself for the moments I doubted him, for the nights I felt betrayed, for the times I let fear take over love. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't just for Marcus, it was for me. It was about choosing to see the truth, choosing to embrace the love we had, and choosing to believe that people can carry their past without letting it define the present. Our love didn't go back to the way it was. It became something new, something deeper, more honest, more aware. We celebrated small victories, a weekend getaway where we talked about dreams instead of fears, a quiet dinner at home where we laughed without tension, mornings spent wrapped in blankets, talking about everything and nothing. Each moment, each gesture, rebuilt the trust we had almost lost. And finally, one evening, months later, we sat on the balcony of our apartment, the city lights flickering below. I held his hand, and he held mine, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt complete peace. "We made it," I whispered. He smiled, and I saw in his eyes the same love I had fallen for 10 years ago, now layered with resilience and understanding. We made it through the storm, and what remained was something stronger than before. Not perfect, but real. Not flawless, but ours. And in that truth, I found hope again, not just for us, but for the idea that love, even when tested, can survive, heal, and grow beyond what you ever imagined. Looking back now, I realize that night, the letter, the fear, the doubt, wasn't just a test of our love, it was a lesson
Life isn't about perfection, and love isn't about never breaking. It's about choosing each other, even when the cracks appear, even when the past casts shadows over the present. Marcus and I are different now, wiser, more patient, more honest. We laugh louder, talk deeper, and hold each other tighter. I've learned that secrets, even those meant to protect, can wound when left in silence. And I've learned that trust, once shaken, can be rebuilt, not to what it was, but into something stronger. That anniversary night could have been the end, but instead it became the beginning of a love that survived truth, pain, and fear. And I want anyone listening to know this. Love isn't always easy, but it's always worth fighting for. And sometimes the hardest truths are the ones that set you free.